The CNI meeting. I'm filling in for Mr. Dupuy, who's not here tonight. Mr. Nolan was kind enough to sit down with me and go through the issues we have tonight. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding, and we'll go through them and any questions anybody has. First one, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Dissinger, the Get More Math contract.
Okay, so I'll keep it very brief. I just kind of jotted down a couple bullet points or items to maybe more to refresh your memory. I don't know if you remember in March, Glenn Lewis, our math department chair, and myself did a presentation on Get More Math, which is an online, really a skills practice program that we implemented last year at Patton Middle School. It was a great opportunity for us. If you remember it, the company, I don't remember their name, I'm sorry about that, but they actually offered us a free full year of complete use of their program. And along with that,
Steve, you can just hit the...
oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Sorry about that. Do I have to repeat everything I just said? Can I just pick up where I left off? Okay. So they were very good to us last year. They gave us full access to the site. They provided one on-site training for free, and that was probably late September, I want to say, last year, maybe early October. And then they did two full-day trainings at the IU with not only our staff, but a handful of other schools in the Chester County area. And they, as I said, they were full-day trainings, and we had the on-site training. We had 100% participation from our math department, grades 6, 7, and 8. And the two off-site trainings, and I kept them optional. I said, listen, you know, we're offering this. It's free of charge. We really would love all of our math teachers to go. We're kind of making a commitment to this. We really want to see how it goes. And I think we had every teacher attend those trainings with the exception of one who I believe missed one because he was sick or something. I don't remember specifically why. But my point in saying that is the teachers are still very much, still very excited about this program. They got a really good taste of it last year. I've been talking with them regularly about it. Got in to see quite a bit of it last year in classrooms, and they're still very excited about it. Still feel very much that it is a beneficial program. You know, kind of when you compare it, when you talk to them about Get More Math and Study Island, which is the program we've been using for a number of years, their response is very, not that they hate Study Island, it's not like that at all, but they just feel like, if I can summarize it, I don't want to quote them, but I think it's fair to say that they believe that Study Island, at least in terms of math, has run its course, and Get More Math seems to be just a better program for them. And a couple other things I'll point out, not only the teacher buy-in, but I think the reason that teachers really like it and really buy into it, a couple of reasons, but probably the most important reason is, if you remember, and actually John reminded me of this today in our principals meeting, when Glenn Lewis was here, our math department chair, he used an example of, you know, how Get More Math has a really important spiraling feature to it. So for example, Glenn could teach a concept one day in math class, and he might assign 2, 3, maybe 4 problems specific to that lesson that day or that night. And once students master that, once they've been instructed, they go in, you know, maybe at hawk time that day or even that night, they go in and they solve, or they do those 2 to 3 problems successfully. What Get More Math does then is it automatically begins to cycle previously learned concepts into that exercise or into that session that they're doing for that particular night. So it does that very efficiently and very consistently. So it's the constant going back to concepts that the kids would have, for example, maybe they learned those concepts in September or October, and they're still visiting them in February and March and April. So that was the piece that we were really looking at, and the teachers are very excited about that piece. They feel very they feel like it worked well, that it was something that benefited their program. The other piece was just the two things, the increase in, I noticed this, and teachers commented on this to me too, about this to me, is there's just been an increase because of this program in teachers conferencing with students, really primarily one-on-one. I saw this across all 3 grade levels. I wouldn't go so far as to say I saw it with every math teacher, but I certainly saw it across all 3 grade levels with many of the math teachers. Just the sitting with a student and going through a problem one-on-one, or providing a little bit of additional support and instruction on a concept. There was that I saw quite a bit of that. And I also, hearing from teachers, I didn't necessarily witness this, and I wouldn't, probably witness it just due to my role, but teachers comment on increases in student collaboration around challenging math concepts. Maybe a concept comes up on Get More Math, something that they learned a month, 2 months ago. They don't remember it. Oh my gosh, I remember we did this, but I can't quite get this, and it's automatically sliding over to the other student with Chromebooks, and they work through it just kind of organically, like not even really planned or scheduled. And a lot of that was happening during hawk time, that period we have at the end of the day. We saw a lot of that, and we actually we kind of built on that about midway through the year, maybe a little sooner. We implemented we called it First 10. We had 2 things that we were trying to accomplish. We were noticing the transition from that very last academic period of the day into hawk time was kind of loose, and we really wanted to tighten that up. Kids were spending too much time in the hallways. They were not using that time wisely, at least not starting. They were requiring an excessive amount of prompts and redirection to get started. So we wanted to address that, and we also wanted to carve out some time for Get More Math. So we implemented a first 10 minutes of hawk time. Students were, I would get on the all call, and I'd say first 10 begins in 1 minute, and students would kind of take that redirection maybe from me and get into their advisories, and for the first 10 minutes it was silent. They were either on Get More Math or they were doing sustained silent reading, just for the first 10 minutes. And that kind of set the tone for hawk time, and I'm rambling here, so I apologize, but then that kind of set the tone for hawk time. And what we found out is that many kids that chose Get More Math during that first 10, after first 10 was over, and they're allowed to go see other teachers or maybe meet with a friend or whatever, many of them just continued and continued to either read silently, do Get More Math. We saw that, and that was encouraging to us. So bottom line is we want to continue. We'd like to purchase the program. Everything we did last year was free. We'd like to purchase it this year, and we feel like we have momentum behind it, and we'd like to continue using it for next year. So.
And so you wouldn't be using Study Island for math, right?
We would drop Study Island from math. We really do feel that, it would be pointless to have both.
Thank you, Mr. Dissinger.
Sure.
I do very well remember Mr. Lewis's presentation, and while I didn't remember all the details, I do remember being very impressed by what he talked about, and thinking this is a smart software that can kind of grow with the individual student. And you use the term spiraling. I understand what you mean. So they're really making sure as we go they haven't lost something.
Right.
But also not making them repeat 20 questions when they get it in 3, and it's clear that they understand that concept. So I appreciated that, and I like what you're talking about the collaboration. I think that's a generational thing, maybe. I don't know. It's cool with the Chromebooks. I guess only just a question. Do you have a certain timeline where you will have any way to evaluate the success of this program versus Study Island over time?
That's a great question, and I don't have that kind of data today, obviously, but I think, I think that we would be able to, at the end of this coming school year or this time next year, be able to really maybe have more quantitative data that would help us to compare it to Study Island. I think I would want to be careful about that though, because I think it's two different, they are two different programs. I mean, they do both measure math skills and they reinforce math skills, and they're both practice oriented. But I think they're different in that the way, even just the format, the way problems are presented, and the way if a problem isn't solved, I think Study Island kids can kind of get around that and just keep right on rolling, whereas Get More Math doesn't really allow you to do that. It stops them, and they're, that. So yeah, I think maybe next time this time next year we should have.
I know you're looking at obviously your PSSA scores, and hoping that this sort of thing may help a little bit, as well as curriculum-based assessments. We'll have the STAR Math, data as well. So there'll be some good data that we can compare, and not like you said, it won't be that it's all about Get More Math. It's the whole curriculum, but certainly we hope that this adds value.
We think, no program is perfect. I think we all would agree on that, but we do feel that this is a valuable tool to add to the toolbox. We do feel like it's worth putting in there, one more way for kids to get some additional practice.
Any questions? Anybody? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Steve, don't go anywhere,
Nope.
because
Field trip, I think?
yeah, we
Okay.
we have something before that, but I think it'll be brief.
Okay.
So do we want to talk about the potential field trips list?
Sure. Just so all the folks out there watching know that we don't go on all these trips. These field trips are board approved, so we do ask that the board approve that are kind of our usual trips that we select from, in August. And knowing that if a trip comes up during the year that is a reasonable trip, that is a day trip, that looks like it's important for students, we will approve it as administration and put it on this list for the next year. So that kind of keeps things moving. But these are all trips we've taken. You'll see a lot of the trips on here may look a little unusual, but some of them are our speech and debate team. Some are our life skills students, and then there's just a lot of things that are just regular grade level trips. So there's quite a variety actually. So any questions about our field trips?
Jeff, no questions? I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
And this obviously is a voting item.
Yes, I'm sorry. And I failed to point out the Get More Math contract will also be a voting item. On to New York City overnight field trip.
Yes, so I'm going to let Mr. Dissinger jump in on this, but I did want to mention that Leah Masteller, one of our Spanish teachers at the middle school, has put this trip forward. Ms. Masteller is always looking for opportunities to get her students to speak Spanish. She has done trips to Kennett. They've done some different things in Kennett, and now she's really reaching out and looking towards making a voluntary trip over a weekend in March to New York City. So Steve, do you want to tell us a little bit about the trip?
Yeah, and Leah wanted to be here. She really did. I spoke to her over the weekend, and she would be able to do this much better justice than me. But she sent me a lot of information, and so we're looking at this trip being Saturday, March 28th through Sunday, March 29th. They would leave around 7 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, and then they return Sunday night late, probably between 7 and 9 p.m. So it really is 2 full days. Certainly there's travel time in there, and then one night. She is going through an educational travel organization. The name is slipping my mind right now.
Jump Street.
Yeah, is it Jump Street? Is that, yeah. So she is going through what seems to be a reputable organization and planning the trip. it's really based on Hispanic culture. That's really what her focus is. She has mentioned things like going to Harlem. I can't even pronounce this, so I apologize. John, you might have to help me with this. Repertoire Español, like a theater. This is where Leah could do a much better job than me, but.
Yeah, no, that's a tough Spanish word that you just read. I'm not sure I can do it a lot better, but it is a theater in Spanish language. That's kind of the highlight of their first day
Yeah.
in the evening.
Yeah. It's like a theater. I think it's a.
It is theater.
Yeah, it is a theater. Yeah, it is a theater. The other thing she mentions too is that the activities that they have planned really do align well with the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Language, those ACTFL standards, and she. I think that is one of the things that attracted or kind of brought her to this point of just being able to really, even though it's only for 2 days and one night, it is really kind of a neat immersion activity where kids will be interacting with Spanish-speaking people in a Spanish-speaking culture. So, you know, she has all the logistical things worked out. It's about $450 per student. There will be 4 adults. Right now she's looking at about 36 students that would attend. And herself as a chaperone, possibly Jess Nyer or myself would attend, a building administrator, high school Spanish teacher Julie Hawks, and Christine Bailey, who is also a Spanish teacher at Patton Middle School. So.
And I think it would be great if an administrator went.
Yeah. Yep.
I really do. And so, if it, you know, I'm not looking to go, but I think that, you know, certainly between the group of the 4 of us, maybe one of us could go, between you and Jess or Tim or I.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about that yet, but
yeah.
I don't think that'll be a problem.
Yeah. But I'm not going to salsa dance. 'Cause I see that's
Yeah,
one
that's
of the
one
things.
of the, that's, yeah, there is some salsa dancing. Maybe Jess will go on that one. She's probably a good salsa dancer.
Questions for Mr. Dissinger on the trip?
I would just comment that I do recall in the past year or two with the high school Spanish department, there was a conversation about immersion being the direction we want to go. And I would also venture to guess that the kids who go on the Quebec trip perhaps then more invested in and engaged in French in high school. So maybe this would have in Spanish. And I think what we're learning with the Franklin Institute with the brain would also say taking them out of their environment and putting them into this new environment is good for learning. So it sounds pretty good. Any other questions?
I was just thinking back to my teaching at Mariana Bersetti High School in Kensington in Philadelphia, mostly Hispanic student body. And one of the big learnings for me was the huge importance of music and dance to those kids.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And the festivals that they had, and, you know, in school and out of school, both community and school based, that really touches their hearts. And so that would be a nice piece for our kids to see firsthand and participate in.
I couldn't agree more.
It seems like whenever we do these kinds of overnight trips, it comes up, and I'll bring it up again, just that make sure that we have some type of mechanism for students who may have interest but not the ability to pay, because it's around, depending on how many kids, around $500. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that that we reach out and that we're looking to make sure that that's not the limiting factor for
Right.
kids is money.
Yep.
You'll talk to Leah about that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, the other trip that I think of is the French trip to Canada, and I would imagine that they've kind of talked through that, and we can maybe follow their lead as far as how we address that, but yeah.
I know, and the PTOs have pitched
Yeah.
in to help support those kinds of situations, so.
And I think Leah is open to fundraising too. She mentioned that in one of her documents, that she certainly open to looking into that sort of thing as well. It's a good point.
And speaking of the Quebec trip, It's the
Yes,
Quebec
that's
trip.
the next thing on the agenda. And this is the trip that you guys have been going on for a very long time. It's up for voting approval. Dates February 13th to 17th. Miss one day of school costs about $1,000 a student. Any questions on that or anything you'd like to add, Mr. Nolan?
Only that we've gotten so much positive feedback about this trip through the years. I know Mr. Hoffman, you have, and Mr. Dissinger, you have recently. I give the teachers a lot of credit, for taking this trip in the dead of winter. And they have had to be flexible in regards to weather, and they've done beautifully. And I think besides speaking French and the cultural kind of understandings that our students develop, I do think it helps develop a little resiliency in our students to go on trips like this. I certainly saw that in Costa Rica. There are things that happen that, hopefully nothing bad, but there are things that happen that you can't predict, and you kind of have to problem solve and get through as a team. So I think that, I think this is a great trip. So I will say that I do like I think we like administrators going on this trip too, if that can happen. I know that can be hard, but yeah. Yeah. What do you want to tell us about it, Steve? Anything else?
Speaking of weather, last year they did stay an extra night. I don't know if we had John and I think all of us were kind of in contact with one of the winter storms that came through. And I just want to, echo what John said. The teachers involved in that, that could be a nightmare when you're thinking about having 30 plus kids or however many they had, maybe not quite that many, and you're having to stay an extra night because the roads are closing. And they just really they handled that exceptionally well, and all of the requirements that follow that in terms of reconciling accounts and things like that. They just did a really great job with that, and the kids absolutely loved it. They just really they really do. They were comfortable. They know that they're with adults that are kind of have control of everything and are equipped to take care of everything, so they feel safe and they learn a lot, and they just have a great experience. So it's been a neat trip, I think. But I agree. I think we do need to. Devin went one year, I think. Tim and I haven't gone, but
Maybe this is the year.
maybe this is a year. Yeah.
Yeah, there is one slight change. The trip used to be in January. It used to be over the Martin Luther King holiday, and as you can see here, the trip is February, but same pattern in that it's the President's Day weekend.
Yeah.
So still just one day of school.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just Friday, right?
Yeah, just one day.
And that's kind of nice, so the students can participate in the Martin Luther King Day of Service here if they so choose.
That was the only reason I didn't go.
Yeah.
So we had activities at the school.
Yeah.
It's nice.
But this coming year, it won't be over Martin Luther
Right.
King. It'll be President's Day. So, yeah.
Very good. If there are no other questions, I think, Mr. Hoffman, you're up next with the curriculum cycle update.
Thank you.
And thank you, Steve. Yeah, really appreciate your help tonight. Nice job.
So the curriculum cycle renewal and the update here is always, I've learned this is the second time I've seen a document with the cycle, and the years are always kind of, I'm going to say concerning, but
They are kind of concerning.
it is something that catches your eye, right? 2025. What am I going to do in 2025? But this is our plan, our curricular plan for the next 6 years. And it basically follows the same pattern as we have in the past. The one change is that we did want to move world language in the cycle. And Brian, if you could scroll down just a little bit and place it in the 2022 or 2023 school year. It previously was 1 year earlier with math and language arts. So it was math, language arts, and world language. That's a pretty meaty year when you look at all three of those programs. In addition to the fact that we've really been working with world language outside of the cycle with their textbooks as they've been coming due. As you know, we just approved the French textbook. They really do like the Wayside resource, and that has been rolling out. We have been helping world language to find that new resource and adapt and change their activities and lessons to be better aligned to the resource. So we have done a lot of work with world language outside of the cycle. So in talking with the world language department, they were fine with the move, but especially considering that we basically have just been working with them year to year anyway, that they wouldn't be up for anything, or they wouldn't be suggesting any major changes anytime soon. And also it separates math and world language and language arts. So that's the three of those together are pretty substantial. And moving the world language into the library and special education slot, we feel like balances the workload a little bit better. Any questions regarding the curriculum cycle?
Ryan, could you scroll back up so we can see what's next year? Yeah. So that's art, family, consumer science, music, and science for this coming year. That's pretty meaty.
That's got some meat to it.
I was just telling Mr. Nolan earlier that I was on the curriculum council long before I was on the board, and I am really a big fan of the way you guys run this. I think it's a great system.
Mr. Hellring and I were just having a sidebar about, perhaps adding something like athletics to the curriculum cycle, and that'll be a topic coming up when Mr. Crater comes forward to talk about some of his work with our code of conduct and standards and values. So we may see something similar with athletics.
Very good. Any questions? No. Okay. I guess, Mr. Nolan, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about the blended learning contract, which will be a voting item as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. And so I'll keep this brief. I think folks will remember that we want to contract out the training for the development of blended courses, and for a variety of reasons. And so we did get 3 quotes from 3 different organizations. All interesting, all a little different. The IU did come in with a lower number, around 20,000. We did originally budget around 30,000 in our Title II professional development funds, federal funds. So the IU did come in a little lower, and also what we like about the IU proposal is it provides the most flexibility. The others, very good, but it was more of a module that they would come in and do, and it was a kind of in concrete, this is what we do, here's the outcomes, et cetera, which could be fine. The IU certainly has that flavor to it, but it also has the opportunity for us to flex it, to maybe add additional hours or trade hours for more coaching. So we feel like we're at the table with them as a complete partner. Plus the IU will provide a lot of expertise in regards to this. As we all know, they have the BVA, and they've done a lot of other work on online learning. So we feel like we're in really good hands. So we are recommending that we approve the IU contract to get this going this year. We like the feel of the training schedule. And the IU will be coming monthly, and if approved, they'll start on August 23rd with our teachers. I believe there's about 15 in all who will be participating, counting administration. They'll be coming monthly. That monthly training will involve basically the improvement of the tools, of using the tools for online learning and blended learning, as well as understanding best practices, and then the development of the courses themselves. In the decision brief, at the very end, Ryan, if you would go to the very end of the decision brief, please. Scroll down, keep going. Right there. We do talk about the courses that we are planning on putting forward with this format. There may be some changes as we go forward, but that's what the teachers are feeling like they would like to work on at this time. That's a sample. There are others. So our goal is that by March, April of this coming school year, the courses will be set and pretty much ready to go. There may be some more summer work for teachers, but we want to make sure that we're in a very good place in March, April. And then, of course, there's another deadline, which would be January, feeling good about having a specific course in the course selection guide, which not only involves getting it in there, but also doing some PR work in regards to letting families and students know what these things are all about and why a student might or might not be interested in taking a blended course. So the monthly training all day, and then there also are some coaching hours that is in the contract where we will be able to really tailor what a specific teacher needs in regards to their training as they develop their courses. One other piece that we're very excited about is we do have a technology integrator, John Mall. He does a great job, and he's provided a lot of training to high school teachers and middle school teachers on Canvas. We are designating him as a technology integrator half-time at the high school this year. He'll have a schedule. Teachers will be able to access him. He'll be going into classrooms. He's done some of this already. It'll be more purposeful this time, and there'll be more time. So we think with all those together, our teachers involved in this and in other areas of technology integration, we'll have an excellent year. The other thing that the IU is really committed to doing is implementing the train-to-trainer model. So if this goes well, which we feel like it will, that next year, 2021, if we continue with another cohort group, we're hoping that some of our teachers could be the trainers. Maybe still partnering with the IU, but certainly that would be our goal. Tim, what did I forget?
No, you did a great job. I think the train-the-trainer model is a key part of that rationale, and that when we looked at some neighboring districts, especially Garnet Valley, and their relationship with their online or their blended course provider, it really is an annual thing. So they deliver their training, their modules to the staff that Garnet Valley selects that they give them to, and then it's a new cohort the next year. So it's not necessarily a just give you the training and then let you do it on your own. It's more of we'll continue to accept however many folks you want to send us and continue to train them in our way. So I think from a standpoint of long term, it is nice to go with someone like the IU, so you're not locked in or trying to pivot in a different direction should you not want to continue to send people forward to the company for training. So the price is right. The hours or deliverables are very comparable. In fact, we get more with the IU contract for less. I think that for all those basic reasons and many that John articulated, I think it's a great move.
So we're open to questions about the proposal.
Who's the IU lead person?
The IU lead person is Dr. Demetrius Roberts. Dr. Roberts is involved in STEM education and kind of I think they call it the Innovative Educational Services Office. Dr. O'Neill's ship, yes. So he works under Dr. O'Neill. It's a pretty involved and comprehensive office, and Demetrius has assured us that, including Dr. O'Neill, we'll have the services of everyone, in that office. But the key trainers are Gail Chambers and Ashley Ford. And here I have their resumes. I pass these around. They both have a very impressive resume in regards to technology education and technology training, and specifically on online learning. They definitely have the knowledge, and we've met with them and you know, interviewed them, and feel very confident they can connect well with our teachers and do a nice job. And part of the reason that we feel so positive about that is that we know that we'll be meeting with them regularly, and that we'll have an ongoing dialogue about what's working well, what needs to be tweaked, you know, what can we improve on. We feel like it's going to be a very nice partnership.
And Mr. Nolan, would you consider Dr. Roberts the kind of the point person, but a lot of the work's going to be done through the two individuals
Yes.
that you mentioned?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Dr. Roberts will certainly be here at times, but the two those are the two trainers, along with others if they need extra support.
I see a lot of strong IT qualifications, but the one thing that kind of jumps out is that one of these individuals is a elementary teacher, and the other I don't think is a teacher at all. Has a BS in instructional design and technology, and has worked in instructional technology for several years. But I hope they'll be able to connect with our teachers. I mean, we're still mainly teaching. The format is different, but
Right.
the job is teaching. I hope they'll have credibility with neither one of them being a middle school or high school teacher ever.
No, I think they will, because they're so knowledgeable about the tools, and they've done so much in regards to the design of online courses. You bring up a great point, and in meeting with them and talking with them, and just the impression that I got is that they are very authentic people. They're you know, they don't have a large ego. They're excited about this opportunity, and they're people that I would feel very comfortable partnering with a project. So it's a good point, but I think they're gonna do a nice job.
If there is any kind of gap or need, perhaps they could draw on BVA resources that are right there.
Yeah,
Those teachers are doing it every day.
yeah, it's a great point.
And I also, when I discussed it with Mr. Nolan, we talked about the fact that the teachers that you guys are selecting to do it on our end are fully all in on this. So, you know, it's a partnership. It's not just them being told how to do it. We discussed that, where they have to bring 50% to the table as far as the educational side as well, and their courses and their goals, what they want to accomplish, and so forth.
Yeah, that's a great point. And these are volunteers. They are very excited. Our teachers are volunteers. There are two for sure, teachers that are on this committee who are going to be doing this, who have taught online courses. Our teachers who have a very extensive background through cyber schools and that sort of thing. There's another couple who've done a lot of flipped classroom strategies already in their classrooms. So we have a lot of expertise on our team. As Ms. Anderson and I discussed this afternoon, and as we talked about previously here in this meeting, we didn't feel, though, that we had the ability at this time to do this training with our staff. So we felt like we needed to reach out and get some support with that. But that doesn't mean that we don't bring a lot of knowledge to the table, our team.
Could we get a short review on, mainly for the benefit of someone who might be watching now or in the future, of exactly what this blended learning we think is going to look like when it's delivered? what is the student experience? What do they do online? What do they do in person? What is flexible or optional, if anything?
Yeah, I'll get started and then I'll have Mr. Hoffman jump in. There's several reasons why we want to offer this and want to explore this and jump into this at least a little bit. One being that with that kind of flipped classroom philosophy, we do feel that for certain students, a lot of learning, basic learning can occur and review without the teacher being there, with the technology tools that we have. Such things as a math teacher can record their lessons, the key parts of their direct instruction, and have that easily available for students to review. Students can also record themselves as they are doing work and send that to their teacher, that sort of thing. So there's many areas in our day-to-day work as a student that we don't necessarily need the teacher to be there. Certainly there's a lot of times when we do need teacher feedback, et cetera. So then when we do go to class, the hope would be certainly that the more rigorous and more higher order thinking activities would be what happens in the presence of the teacher, can move faster, maybe more in depth as these students are preparing and covering some of the more basic things on their own. I mean, that's one approach. Therefore, I as a student, in the model that we're looking at, I go to class 3 out of 6 days, our 6-day cycle. The other 3, I have specific tasks that I work on. I can still communicate with the teacher, and I can even visit the teacher because the teacher will have office hours. So I can get some extra help if needed, but probably it'll be more digitally. And then, so there's that piece that for some students, this actually may be an enhanced experience than the regular brick and mortar every day.
So the student's schedule would even show, like on these 3 days you'll report to class, on these 3 days you're working on your own.
Yes, and you'd be assigned to most likely a study hall area, or it could be with our lunch and learn philosophy. Maybe ultimately when we get to this point in 2021, there are certain areas where a student could be. I mean, that's the way the STEM Academy does it. There's certain areas. Then there's the other piece. So instructionally could be really beneficial to some of our students. The other piece would be that at the scheduling, if in fact we get a core group of blended learning courses, it would be possible for a student to free up their last period. If they're able to ACE this course, BDF another course in the same lane, I have no 10th period class, and I'll be scheduled for a study hall, and that's really great for me. I play baseball, or I do, I go to ballet, or I do, horseback riding, which we do have students who do those sorts of things, as you know, baseball, of course, but the other things. So there could be some found flexibility in this model. So it instructionally sound, but also some flexibility. We're not doing it so that students can take more courses, so we're not looking for that. The other piece that we feel could be very beneficial to our whole school is that as we do this training and we jump into this in a significant way, we do feel that it will have the effect of improving the use of technology across the building and kind of continue progressing in that area. We've made some good strides, but we need to continue moving. And so we're excited about that, and we think that just like many of the things that we're trained in for specific reasons, when they make sense and they're good, they have a way of getting out to all the classrooms. We see that happening with this as well. It does give us pause that not that we need or worried about being like anybody else, but it does give us pause that some of our other neighboring districts are offering this in a major way. And we certainly feel like, that we have a lot to offer in this area as well. We just need to get it going and see how it fits in our program. And Jeff, you've brought this up, that eventually maybe some more online opportunities, pure online opportunities would be nice for our kids, possibly. From our perspective, this would be the way to get there. This would be a nice way to kind of get involved and learn about how students can manage this sort of thing while we maintain our rigor. And then maybe the next step would be some online offerings, more than we have in the past. So.
I think one of the most powerful things, and we talked to some student groups about blended learning last year, just off the cuff with the Principals Advisory Council or in the hallway. And one of the most interesting comments that I heard from a senior that just graduated was, wow, it's, when I think about our mission too, so when I go to college, it's not that I'm going to necessarily have blended courses, but my courses will meet Tuesday and Thursday, or they'll meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'll have work to do in between. And that would have been a really cool way to help prepare me for the college atmosphere, is to have had a course like that where I wasn't going to be in front of the teacher every day, but there were expectations of me that I needed to do things to be prepared for the next time I can't come to class. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective I wasn't really necessarily thinking about at the time, and then that really resonated with me last year, and bringing that thinking into this year about preparing our kids for success after Unionville and what a college environment looks like. Again, it's not necessarily that it's a blended course that they're going to take, but the idea is the same in that they have they don't have the course every day. They don't see the instructor every day, and they have work to do in between. And that really resonated with me. So that's just another anecdote to add.
And I want to share a couple of comments. We did have a discussion earlier today about this, and I had mentioned to Mr. Nolan that many years ago I was on a small committee as a parent that was a technology type committee, and we had a discussion, you and I, about flipped classroom. And so to be, candid, I've been a fan of this premise for a long time. However, candidly, when we talked about this and I learned that we're not starting these classes this fall, I exhaled a little bit because, as we discussed, this is a big undertaking and we want to do this right. And so I feel much better about us going into this partnership with the CCIU for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into now. But really, it's about education, right? There are tools, but this is about the education piece, and I feel good about that. But I think what I also want to add is, as far as the blended learning, certainly everything is wellness, and that's, it's our Leah and I's joke. Everything is wellness, but what we're learning with the Franklin Institute, what we're learning with the Social and Emotional Learning Committee, all these things seem to be coming back around to pointing to the best thing we can do is have the child learn to take responsibility for their own learning and their own engagement in their learning and their own motivation to their learning. And I think that certainly, we discussed this past year when we brought this up, there's an element of maturity that goes with being able to take this class. And not everyone will be able to take this class, and you'll have to figure out how to filter that. But I do think toward the college thing, and just toward even high school and middle school, to be able to move toward having the child, take responsibility for their own learning, having the downtime is the way the brain processes, right? You're fed some information, you step back, you process it, you dive deeper, you go left, you go right, you go up, and then you come back and you have a group discussion. To me, it makes sense on a lot of levels. And so while I'm relieved we're not jumping into this in 2 weeks,
Now.
I'm also, and Mr. Nolan also convinced me of this, we should definitely be moving forward with this. Not because everyone else is doing it, because it's the right thing to do for our mission. So that's just where I fall on this.
I'm a big fan of the flipped classroom too, and I think Mr. Hoffman and I might have seen that talking about maturity in the middle school working successfully.
That's right.
So we even have some experience, even as low as middle school, some positive experience. So good to have the teachers that are on board and the extensive professional development is his plan, so it sounds good.
Any other?
If there are any other,
any
I don't have any
questions?
other questions. I guess, Mr. Hoffman, do you have a summer curriculum work summary for us?
Yes, we do. It's amazing how many pages you can fill up if you start on summer work, right? So we're supposed to be off on the summer, so teachers are supposed to be off, but they're working hard. So I want to pay respect to some of the teacher work that has happened over the summer. And I'm not going to go bullet point for bullet point. I'm just going to highlight things here and there. One thing that's really interesting, obviously, with English, when I think about feedback from our community and our teachers, looking at some of the little lit circle options in 10th grade has been something. And talking with, we had a parent meeting, and she had some really great points about some thoughts about the literature, and we talked to the English department, and they shared some other thoughts, and we got together and started to evaluate our options. And since it's been a while, and we're trying to take a look at what we might be able to offer, some different choices. So we're taking a look at that. So teachers have been reading and doing a resource evaluation over the summer regarding that world curriculum. Business computer apps, I think one of the biggest pieces there, and I'm sure the board remembers, as we talked about, adjusting personal finance to the semester course, a lot of that work. But additionally, taking some of the important pieces of personal finance and moving them into ECA. So the incorporation of college and career activities, resume writing, cover letters into ECA. And also we talked about, because ECA was required, it was a graduation requirement, and part of that was learning skills of Word and Excel. We also wrote incorporating Excel instruction into the accounting curriculum. So specifically wrote in the program and how to, some lessons on how to use Excel, because we wanted kids to be exposed to that. Our library is they're rolling out their new cataloging system, which will be ready for the first day. Our special education teachers have been busy writing curriculum, getting ready for our students to come back, especially in community-based instruction, goals and specific strategies and skills that we want our kids to attain when they're out in the community on an outing. Definitely looking to do some streamlining and build some consistency across the district at the IST by looking at some of our data collection tools and making those consistent. Again, I mentioned world language in the cycle earlier. As you can see, there's been some curriculum writing in world language over the summer, adjusting pacing for the new resource and incorporating a new resource. We're excited to bring in our civil engineering course this coming year, so that training and curriculum writing has been happening. And obviously our committee work, we've talked a lot about our blended learning plan and professional development plan here, and starting at the identification of our key focuses for social and emotional learning as part of our goals moving forward as a district and in curriculum. So it's been a busy summer, and a lot of this is leading to great stuff for our kids coming back to school here in a couple of weeks. So any questions or comments on anything that we've been working on over the summer?
Just a question or more clarification. So we changed the requirement for students for ECA where they can take one of the other courses, and do you feel, I'm just confirming, you feel comfortable that they've written it into the pieces that are critical have been written into those other courses?
I do. I really do. I think there are some aspects of ECA which that had served us well, and it was a time to maybe sunset a few things, but also really great opportunity to take some of the personal finance pieces that we feel like would be important and incorporate them into ECA. ECA will still do, it's still, the essential computer applications, so they're still going to focus on those things. But additionally, some extra time with in a different venue for Excel as well, because we just, because when you add things in, again, it's like an accordion, right? So we want to make sure that we feel comfortable that kids will, no matter what course they take, they're going to get some of these essential skills.
I will say in this room on a personal note, the personal finance, I'm glad we're having 2 children this summer who worked full time. They can make the money, but knowing how to manage the money is an entirely different subject.
That's funny.
Well, I believe that finishes our agenda.
Yeah,
Ms.
unless there's any
Anderson.
other
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
No
sorry.
funds, yeah.
I'm no good for that, sorry. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Anderson, for your leadership tonight, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.